Well, folks, President Obama's health care law is on the fast track now to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the law's legality may be decided before the 2012 election. Yesterday, the Obama administration decided not to ask an Atlanta area appeals court to review its decision against the law, making the Supreme Court the next likely landing spot. This comes as more health care waivers may soon be announced. So far, over 1,300 companies and unions have been granted waivers from the law's new rules. And joining us right now, Wyoming Senator and orthopedic surgeon, Senator John Barrasso. Good morning to you, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the headline, and that is this. It sounds like next stop for this bill is the Supreme Court.
And then the stop after that is showing that it is unconstitutional. The government can't come into our homes and tell us that we have to buy a product. This bill is fatally flawed. It's bad for patients. It's bad for providers, the nurses and doctors who take care of those patients, and it's going to be terrible for our taxpayers, Steve.
And ultimately, Doctor, it sounds like their verdict would come out, their judgment would probably come out in the summer before the election. If, for instance, it is found unconstitutional, I would imagine that would get your side all riled up to go to vote.
Well, people are ready to vote to get to a new president, get to a new Congress, and really repeal this health care law. But I'm looking to the Supreme Court to make the right decision, which is to say this is unconstitutional and should be repealed.
All right, Senator, I mentioned a moment ago that so far something like 1,372 companies and also organizations and unions have applied for and received waivers where they don't have to follow the new health care reform bill law. Doesn't that prove that this thing doesn't work if so many companies have got to ask for an exception to it?
Yeah, and it's 3.5 million individuals. About half of them are folks that get their insurance through unions, the same unions that lobbied for the health care law. Remember, Nancy Pelosi said first you have to pass it before you get to find out what's in it. Well, right. This law is now even more unpopular than it was when it was passed. And even though union workers are only about 1 in 8 workers in America, they got over almost half of the waivers because, you know, the president promised. He said if you like what you have, you can keep it. And he said the costs would go down. And these unions and others have said, this is financially impossible to live within these laws. It's also why a lot of businesses aren't hiring people in the country and why, Steve, we're still at 9.1% unemployment. It's the uncertainty of the cost of the health care law.
Senator, I was down in Dallas last week, weekend before last, and I was told by a restaurant owner that if this thing is completely enacted, next year she'll probably have to go out of business because she can't afford to do everything that this particular bill is going to call for.
Well, it seems that no matter what policy this administration comes out with, it makes it harder and more expensive for the private sector to create jobs. And I'm looking for ways to make it cheaper and easier for the private sector to create jobs. That's how you get an economy going again, Steve, and we need to do that. And that's why we need to repeal this health care law. And the waivers, to me, is just a basic fact that this health care law is fatally flawed.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Senator John Barrasso, we thank you very much for joining us today from Washington.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.